Humans are weird, the hail hero of the abominable world. So why don't more aliens come to Earth now that the spaceport is open? Mac asked idly of his companion. The 4-foot-long lizard blinked lazily at him with one eye and gave a snort of amusement. Well, one might speculate that all that propaganda you sent out actually worked, the lizard rasped dryly. Propaganda? Mac asked, arching an eyebrow. What propaganda? The lizard kicked him reproachfully and stretched out in the warm sand. Do not try to be obtuse, friend Mac. I have seen the entire set you keep in your files. Mac gave an interrogative flick of his foot and the lizard snorted. I have watched the tales of the hail hero on the abominable world many times. If only a fraction of the horrors he revealed were true, no sane being would willing come here. You are here, Mac pointed out idly, meanwhile racking his mind for which of his shows his friend was referring to. Well, I have never laid claim to much sanity, the lizard confessed, and I figured as long as I stick close to you, I will be safe from the horrors the Hail One faced. Mac squinted over at him as his mind finished his mental tally. Hey, the only files of mine that you've accessed are the David Attenborough documentaries. The lizard made the great effort to nod. A hail hero indeed, he said seriously. The man must be quite mad, of course, to face such horrors so easily, but his sacrifices are appreciated by all who have been warned away. Uh-huh. Mac eyed his friend and then decided that a nap was preferable to pursuing the odd conversation any longer. Humans are weird. Forgetfulness. Hey, Twitch buddy, Private Jones called out from the next room, the salutation interrupted by a yawn. Yes, friend Jones, Quilksich responded without altering his posture. His secondary legs were tapping lightly across the bottom of his abdomen, triggering the keyboard that was projected there. He might have used the data processing station in the center of the large communal room, but that would require running around the edge of the human-sized space. The pathways that the humans had built into the walls were very useful, to be sure. However, Quilksich was tired after a long day of observing the base commander engaged in hunting and had much data to process. He rather preferred to use his personal device and stay right here in the comfy hammock that had been made with his comfort in mind, thank you very much. Do you, by chance, remember what I came in here for? Jones asked. Quilksich paused in the composition of his observations and slowly turned to face the door that Jones had stepped through. He tried to parse the words. By chance indicated that the human thought that the likelihood that the answer would be positive was low. Quilksich mulled hard over what the rest of the question could mean. Why do you think that I would know what your intentions were by leaving the room? Quilksich asked. Ah, Jones said. Maybe I said something to you. You did not, Quilksich said slowly. But that is the room that houses the foodstuffs. Perhaps you were hungry and wished to procure food. It's always about food with you, the human said with some amusement in his voice. Oh, right. Boot grease. Thanks, buddy. Quilksich stared rather blankly at the door as Jones came back in, clutching the canister of boot grease, and proceeded to get to the task of cleaning and waterproofing his foot coverings. Quilksich thought to ask why Jones had thanked him when his suggestion had been fruitless, but the question of how the human had forgotten his intention between the couch and the door seemed both more pressing and less polite. Finally, Quilksich shrugged and turned back to his report, making a high-priority note to pursue this further. Such a sensitive topic as flaws in mental function might need something more in the way of diplomacy than a mere nutritional anthropologist could offer. Humans are weird. Regulation. Alliance Coalition. Safety and Health Regulation. 574.328 Subfile 749 Topic Interspecies Interactions in Formal Settings. If a human crew member requests any volume/weight/length of substance that is in any reasonable measure explosive/flammable/reactive under the standard range of pressure, reflectivity, and temperature found of Alliance ships, you are to determine exactly what they intend to do with it before providing it. The human must provide exact details of their intentions for every measurement or it will not be provided to them. Addendum 1, I have a really cool idea, is not sufficient explanation. Addendum 2, the presence of moderately hazardous vermin is never sufficient explanation, and should the human in question attempt to use it as such, they should be immediately reported to the commanding officer. Alteration 1, Asterisk under conditions no less than 2 standard deviations away from the standard range of pressure, reflectivity, and temperature found of Alliance ships and on worlds frequented by Alliance away teams. Alteration 2. Asterisk under conditions where a human can survive for more than 5 minutes with a standard survival gear set. Addendum 145. It is to be assumed that if there is a human on your crew, there will be spontaneous explosions/ignitions/reactions. All ships hosting humans, or likely to host humans, or likely to pass near ships hosting humans will take appropriate cautions. Please see Alliance Coalition Safety and Health Regulation, 1453.245, Subfile 543, Topic Interspecies Interactions in Formal Settings. Humans are weird IRL, pork barrel bases. Setting: sitting around sipping cocoa while it pours rain outside. Old Uncle 1, waxing eloquent over old conspiracy theories. And then there is all the testimony from so many credible sources, 4-star generals, PhD certified doctors. Old Uncle 2, nodding sagely. So many, and the things they saw, official astronauts' reports. Old Uncle 1, spaceships, aliens on the surface. Old Uncle 2. And there was that base on the dark side of the moon, sips cocoa. That was reported by very reliable sources. Old Uncle Hash 1 frowns seriously. Whose is it? Is it ours? If they went to all that trouble to build a base on the dark side of the moon, they must be using it for research. They aren't going to spend all those resources on nothing. That would be a total waste. Me bursts out with a barking laugh. Really? Our government? Uncles look at me blankly for a moment, recalling decades of pork barrel spending, $2,500 toilet seats, and general budgetary misuse. Aunt Hash 1 in an official tone. Well, Mr. NASA Director, sir, if we don't spend this money by the end of the fiscal quarter, they cut our funding next year. Raucous laughter all around. And that is how my family came to the conclusion that there is an expensive and abandoned Cold War era government base on the dark side of the moon, collecting dust in the cold vacuum of the lunar surface. Stacks of carbon copy forms sit on shelves, unstirred by any wind. A large anchor sits in one corner. Humans are weird. Where do stories come from? But how can you not believe in river monsters? The young author relaxed into the seat, stretching out her legs in the luxury of the space allowed in a train. Her head rested against the scratched window, marked with the dust of 3 states and the fingerprints of many travelers. Outside, the soggy landscape rolled past in alternating waves of forest and farmstead. Her mind was blissfully empty, poured out in conversation with the delightful stranger who had shared the last few hours of the journey. It was a conversation ranging over philosophy, history, medicine, and great literature. A conversation where their minds had hummed together like perfectly tuned strings on a harp. Now the delightful friend was gone, and the author was relaxing into that state of blissful hypnosis that only a long train ride can induce. Then the trees opened, and beneath the tracks appeared the roiling, turbid waters of the great river, the river that had fed, carried, watered, and then powered the population of this land since time immemorial. Like breath itself, the river was a part of her. As the train rumbled over the bridge, it interjected no more thought into her slack and open mind than the air itself. That is. Until halfway across, she noted the dirty green color of the water. A coil of more specific pleasure twisted inside of her. This was no crystal-clear mountain stream, with ever pebble visible from the surface. No, this was a river that fed nations. It was dense with life itself. Life in the form of every creature that crawled on the surface of the earth and writhed through its waters. It was dense with the raw nutrients that fed ecosystems to rival the Great Barrier Reef. And she shuddered. That was all the warning she had. As the train car slipped over the last quarter of the bridge, a near formless creature leapt out of the water and into her brain. What if? It hissed in her innermost ear. How much do you love me? How much do you love your most treasured cultural treasure? What would you sacrifice to save the life of an alien? What is the value of my life? What cost are you willing to endure to preserve it? What happens when one value you hold clashes with another value? The author's hands trembled, and without thought she snatches up her notebook. Words fall like leaves on the page at first, fragments of ideas herded by fragmentary punctuation. The being morphs. At one moment a seal, the next a spider, then suddenly an idea. It thinks the newts are impossibly cute. The being is now fully formed. A cartilaginous skeleton, aquatic, long, so very long, 3 sets of limbs. A world from another story, another time surges up, and the author know it to be this creature's homeworld. Deep canyons, bitter winds, complex underwater caverns. A novel forms in moments, a contrast of values, arguments. How dare you ask us to give up millennia of preservation efforts, a sacred site? The cost will be immeasurable. This is a person. There is no other way? If it cannot be used for the good of the logos, then why do you claim to preserve it for the logos? The author shivers, knowing that the questions such a novel will ask, if she does her job properly, will no doubt generate controversy. Offend. The immediate rush of inspiration is gone, trapped on the pages of her notebook where it can be managed. She takes a deep breath and leans back against the window, searching for that happy, hypnotic state of being from mere moments ago. But her mind is no longer empty. In the place of the mental vacuum, she now swims, filling the space, looking at the author through slits of eyes, demanding attention. "Are you really my creation?" whispers the author to this creature. She smiles. She has her attention.